And folks, always great to see such a packed house. I want to welcome you to this regular City Commission meeting of March 25th. I want to notice the absence of Commissioner Martin. He couldn't join us here tonight. And we have one change to the agenda. Under agenda items, we are going to pull item A, which is the Newberry Corners final plat. They have asked to have that continued on to the next meeting. That's the only change that I have, and with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Glanzer. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments about the agenda in front of you? Does the public have any questions or comments about the agenda in front of you? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Tonight's invocation will be given by Mrs. Chester. She's a brand new faculty member with the Newberry High School. I think she was integral in this year's four-peat return championship. And if you would, please, ma'am, join us at the podium. And after the invocation, if you would, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please bow your heads. Lord, thank you so much for letting us come tonight and be gathered in this place. Thank you that everyone could get here safely, Lord. Thank you for these students and what they bring to this community, Lord. Please help us have a wonderful meeting tonight. In your name I pray, amen.
Amen. And would Deputy Chief Alyssa Massey please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance at the podium, please.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both. Okay, our first item on the agenda tonight, guys, is a special moment for us. It's not often that, well, actually for Newberry High School, it's pretty often we win a state championship. But winning 2 in a row is pretty rare. Winning 3 is pretty much unheard of. Winning 4 is now legacy legend status, and that's what we're here to celebrate tonight. Tonight is my honor and pleasure to read into the City of Newberry records the following proclamation honoring the criminal justice program of Newberry High School for their four-peat victory. And the proclamation reads, "May this success lead to a greater achievement in the years to come. Whereas 48 students enrolled in Newberry High School Academy of Criminal Justice competed in the Florida Public Service Association State Leadership Conference in Orlando, Florida, against students from Miami to Pensacola to Jacksonville. And whereas they brought home first place in team events, advanced firearms, criminal incident marketing video, criminal justice brain bowl. They placed first in individual events, criminal justice exam, marketing poster, prepared speaking, Miss Public Service, novice firearms, traffic crash report, and fingerprinting, and brought home the Top Gun Award. Whereas 6 seniors received a $1,000 scholarship, while Landon Boucher, Alyssa Massey, and Keely Smith were recognized for participating in FSPA for 4 years. And whereas Newberry High School Academy of Criminal Justice finished first in the state at this year's conference, making it their 4th year in a row winning the championship. And whereas the Academy of Criminal Justice students have demonstrated a commitment to teamwork, they maintain high academic standards. And now, therefore, I, Jordan Marlowe, Mayor of the City of Newberry, do hereby express pride in our students and thank them for a job well done by bringing honor to their school and community in the FPSA State Leadership Conference." Director Treese, would you like to say a couple words to us about the amazing accomplishment of you and your students?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, commissioners, community members. It is just a distinct honor to be here tonight to recognize these kids. We always joke and we always are so proud of the support that we get from the City of Newberry. This school is like no other in the county, and I know many of our CTE directors around the county. Actually just had a meeting with many of them today, and I just can't say enough about how much support we get from this community and everything else, and we just want to thank you for that, and thank you for honoring our students. So thank you, sir.
Absolutely. It is our pleasure. And if you could get all of your students to join us here, we'll present the proclamation to them. And we have our principal of Newberry High School has come out tonight here to celebrate this moment with us as well. We're all just randomly looking into the center, right?
Yep.
Since it's a school night, you don't have to stay till the end of the meeting. Normally, that's the deal, but you have to stay the whole way. Since it's a school night, you're very good. We're going to take a 2-minute break, everybody, while we reset. 2 minutes, clear the way. 2 minutes.
I'm getting closer.
Got plenty of seating now.
Sit down there. While we are resetting, folks, we want to let you know that we are having some trouble with our live streaming. We are recording the video. We will post it up onto YouTube and link it to the website as soon as we can. So if you're listening at home on channel 97, you're probably just hearing my voice because I understand we are having some difficulty with the visual on that one. But there's always a sure thing when you come to the meeting, you'll see it all, right? Okay, are we ready to resume? Miss Amy, we have everything set? All right. So next up tonight, we would like to invite both of our election candidates to talk to us for a couple minutes each. We have Joy Glanzer incumbent. Joy, would you go to the podium because the camera is going to be right there on your face, and we want everybody on YouTube to see who's giving the speech.
Thank you so much for this time tonight. I'm Joy Glanzer, and I'm rerunning for the Newberry City Commission seat Group 5. When I look back on the last 2 years that I've served on this board, I'm happy to say we've been quite busy in making Newberry a better place to live, work, and recreate. All of you on the dais and many citizens at home were present last month at the mayor's State of the City address. And I was sitting right next to him, and even I was amazed at the list of accomplishments that we've had in the last couple of years. The list is way too lengthy for me to recite here in these 2 minutes, but some highlights include how we negotiated increased revenue with the county on the local option fuel tax over the next few years. This will generate much needed money for our road improvement. We also developed the proposal to the county, which resulted in the fairgrounds moving to Newberry, to the Canterbury site. I was actually involved in presenting that proposal, and I'm so sorry, thank you, proposal and making the case to the county in our mayor's absence. The county voted unanimously to bring the fairgrounds to Newberry. We completed the expansion of our fire department, which included a new ambulance bay. And including that bay was a huge risk to the city. We had no guarantee that the county was going to award us an ambulance, but that risk paid off big time because we got an ambulance, and it should be delivered sometime next month, I believe. We also developed franchise agreements with GRU and Florida Public Utilities to provide natural gas service to Newberry. The franchise fees amount to about 6% on natural gas sales, but the big deal about that is it gives us another stream of income in addition to the property tax revenue. So it's really helping us to diversify. This list goes on and on and on, and I encourage anybody who wants to talk to me about it and discuss the accomplishments we had and where we want to go, please call me, visit me on my website or on my email. But you know, these things don't happen without hard work, familiarity with the issues, and being willing to make those hard decisions in the best interest of our city. And I'm tireless in getting to the bottom of these issues and understanding what the needs of our city are versus what the city is able to do. So what I'm asking you tonight, if you want more good stuff, please re-elect me on April 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Paul Norfleet, join us here at the podium.
Feel like I'm going to the principal's office here at the podium. But I'm Paul Norfleet, running for Group 5. I'd like to thank the commission for giving us this opportunity to speak tonight. To introduce myself, a little bit about me is I'm a fourth generation farmer, rancher, businessman, and resident of Newberry. I met my wife in high school. We were high school sweethearts. We still are today. At least I think we are. But we got 2 kids, Judson and Savannah, the ages 12 and 10. And that's the reason why I'm running, is for that future generation, to make sure that Newberry maintains that small town feel that I've grown up to love and I've known it all my life. And one of the things that we can do is to make sure that government maintains that openness and transparency, and we need to make sure that we remember that our city government works for the people and not the people working for the government. And a lot of times we forget that. And I come from a private background, so knowing how to do more with less and being able to really bring that to the table. I have a background in underground utilities, so having a mixed diversity of utilities, development, and production agriculture, I can work with the commission and whoever they are to be able to make sure that we can move forward for a productive future for the future generations. And I just ask for the residents of Newberry to vote for me April 9th. And if you want to learn more about me, go to northfleetfornewberry.com and feel free to call me. I'll stop by and talk with anybody at any time, unless it's at night. And thank you.
Thank you. While we're on our election, we have a full house. I want to remind everybody that this year's debate is this Thursday right here in City Hall chambers at 7 p.m. And I haven't asked either candidate, but I'm going to go ahead and volunteer them both to stay around after the debate, just in case your question doesn't get asked or you want to follow up. I'm sure they'd be glad to sit and chat with you for a little while after the debate as well. So hopefully everybody can make it. The Student Government Association Newberry High has put on the municipal debates for the past 4 years. They look forward to it every year, so I want to express my gratitude to both candidates for agreeing to that debate. And with that, we will move on to a presentation about our solid waste comparison. We have some good news. Mr. New, will you share that with us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to make another attempt to be brief. Hopefully it'll be a successful attempt. This is information I distributed. I just think from time to time, well, as we go into budget season, we're generally looking at rates, trying to get a better handle on where our rates are and whether they're sufficient. As you all know, and we say it all the time, we develop rates that are sufficient to cover our costs. There's no profit involved in government rate making, and so as we go through the budget process, part of ensuring that we have a budget that will meet where revenues meet expenses is ensuring that our rates are sufficient to meet our expenses. So will you click for me, Amy? So just a very quick comparison on monthly solid waste charges on the residential side. You'll remember it's been about a year and a half ago that we entered into a new contract with Waste Pro. We put it out for bid and got very competitive pricing. You can see that on a monthly solid residential charges, Newberry is the second lowest of the 7 cities that are in our peer group at $15.75. We initially were $15. We adjusted to $15.75 simply because we were losing money in that particular fund. The city of Chiefland is cheaper. We account that they have cheaper tipping fees. All of the waste collected in Alachua County is taken to the Alachua County Transfer Station, which has a higher tipping fee than many of our neighbors. And also, just as a caveat, Newberry has twice a week pickup for residential service. The only other one in that group that has twice a week service is Chiefland. So they're cheaper and they get twice a week service. It's kind of defying the odds, but you can see that the range is from $12.73 up to a little better than $28 a month. And our rates drop nearly $5 a month whenever you enter this new contract. Next slide is a look at non-residential commercial waste. We have a variety of schemes from bin sizes to frequency of collection, so we just randomly picked one. This is for a 2-yard dumpster being collected once a week. And you can see that here we are the least expensive. At $50, ranges up to $95. This is Alachua County. City of Gainesville's at $90, and you can see the range there. So all of this goes, the credit goes to a commission that sets the vision that we want to have very competitively charged utility services, and in this case, the commission said we're going to go to bid to get those services. That's not always the case, but it's staff's mission to carry that out. We hear what you say, and we check what our service charges are in all industries and all of our services, and our goal is to make sure we're competitive everywhere we go. Just a final word for the commission. We did the same thing for electric charges. I transmitted something along those lines today. Again, we're very competitive for electric rates compared to our peer group, and we'll present that at next month's or at the next meeting in April. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Does the commission have any questions? Commissioner Glanzer?
So, this is great news, but I was curious, why do we include Trenton and Chiefland in our peer group? They're not in our county.
No cherry picking.
No cherry picking.
But I mean, if you look at our county, we are the lowest.
If we did look at our county, we're the lowest. It's just that their names come up when people say, well, what about? And so we asked staff to go check everybody's rates, and they came back, and so we included them in the survey.
But I think Commissioner Glanzer is making a great point, and I think it's a wonderful job negotiating with Waste Pro. I want to thank Waste Pro as well. But to say that you can put Newberry and the city of Gainesville in a peer group, probably not quite fair. And yet they're there. Everybody can see them. You would normally think fair market, our market principles. The larger the city, the lower the rate because they're getting more customers. And clearly, that's not the case. So thanks for showing us not just our own situation, but the situation around us as well. Okay, and now we come to a moment in the night where we have public announcements. These are the non-controversial public announcements. You want to tell us about a garage sale that's happening, you've lost your dog, something along those lines. Does anybody have any public announcements? Main Street here. Mr. Thomas, come on down.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to let everybody know that we have 3 Planning and Zoning Board positions that are coming up for renewal the end of April, And so we'll be putting an ad out advertising for anybody if they're interested. So we have, by the April 30th, we have 3 expirations. The current members have been serving and doing a great job, and obviously we want them to reapply to stay in, but if anybody else is interested, they can also submit an application for review.
Awesome. Good job. Looking ahead. Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Other public comments? Mr. New.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike New, resident of Northern Newberry. And on April the 13th, which is a Saturday, West Fest is going to happen again. Mark your calendars. We got great entertainment. It's all local. Everybody loves Jamie Davis and Justin Lee Parton. They're probably the 2 county-wide favorites. We're calling it the Orange and Blue Game After Party. So after you go watch the Gators beat up on everybody, it's going to be beautiful weather, we're told. Come on out and enjoy some live music and some family fun. It is free. It is free.
I thought we were supposed to have a proclamation about the weather in the consent agenda tonight, just to make sure we got that for, but absolutely, April 13th. Any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, move to the consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Hersom, a second from Commissioner Coleman. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to public hearings and ordinances, and I'm happy to announce that after years of intense negotiations with our legal staff, I have finally won the argument, and they are going to give me permission to read the quasi-judicial proceedings just one time, on the caveat, as long as no one new enters the room. So if somebody else enters the room that doesn't hear me read the procedure to begin with, we can move forward as long as everybody understands that when we're in quasi-judicial, this body shifts from a legislative board to a judicial board because they're in a quasi-judicial. So, you want me to read it? Yeah, it's something to say first. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read the following quasi-judicial proceedings into the record. And the first step for us, before I do that, is to ask the attorney to please read the ordinance by title and number.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number 2019-09, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan of 10 or less acres of land under the small-scale development amendment procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 Florida statutes, providing for a change in land use classifications from planned development to commercial on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Okay, now I want to explain the rules concerning a quasi-judicial hearing. Primarily, what we all need to understand is that this board can only accept and take into consideration substantial and competent evidence into their decision-making process. I'm going to go ahead and read a quote from our statute. It says, quote, "All public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into the evidence, and the giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record." And now we will swear everyone in. So if you're here to speak to any quasi-judicial item on the agenda tonight, no whether it's the one that's in front of us or not, if you're here to speak to a quasi-judicial, please stand now. If you don't plan to speak, but you think you might have something to say, we can save some time by swearing you in now. Everybody standing. Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you swear everyone in, please?
Please raise your right hand and starting from the side of the room, state your name for the record.
Craig Brazier. Brian Thompson. Lee Davis.
Michelle Gina Beals.
Brian Thomas.
Brian Drummond.
Do you hereby swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, could I have disclosure of any ex parte? Let's just do that for the item in front of us. We'll keep that clear. Is any ex parte information to disclose on the item in front of us, Commissioner Coleman?
For participant at DCC Church.
Okay. Mr. Attorney, do you have any questions?
Do you think that you can act impartially
Yes.
for today's hearing? Thank you.
Commissioner Hersom, do you have something similar to say?
Member of DCC Church.
Same
And
question.
I believe I can make a fair decision.
Okay.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
I have no
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Glanzer?
No.
And I do not either. Okay, our order of presentations is first that our staff gets a chance to give an overview. Then the applicant is able to give an overview with no time limit. Then staff will come back and give their more detailed report along with their recommendation. Do we have anyone here tonight who wishes to claim status as a third-party intervener? If you do, you should have technically notified us of that ahead of time. No one's claiming third-party status. That makes things a little easier. After the applicant and the staff have given their reports, we have 3 minutes of public comment. Then the applicant can cross-examine, and staff will then also have the opportunity to cross-examine. Once everyone has asked all the questions, members of the decision-making body through the chair may ask questions of the staff, applicant, and anyone who has participated. Final arguments will be then made by the applicant and the staff, and the test evidence and testimony presented at the hearing will be introduced into the record. Then the city attorney will advise the decision-making body as to the applicable law and the factual findings that must be made to approve or deny the application. Then we'll close the public hearing and the commission will enter into deliberations. And after the deliberations, a vote will be taken. Okay? Are there any questions about our quasi-judicial procedures or when you will have the opportunity to ask any questions or make comments or statements? Okay? We'll remind you when we get there as we go. Okay. Thank you very much. Brian, will you enter in the staff overview, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The overview of the application before us is that the Tates have entered into a contract for purchase of the existing Destiny Community Church facility in order to facilitate turning that into from a church into a daycare. They need to do a small-scale land use amendment and then also a subsequent rezoning. The end result will be, if approved by the commission, that they would be able to operate the daycare by right rather than a special exception on the property.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here tonight? I didn't see her. She did such a wonderful job the first time. Okay. All right, would you like to give a presentation favor? Don't feel like you have to. Okay. Staff report, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I would remind everybody this is the second reading, so we have heard these before, so I don't want anybody to feel like I'm trying to rush it. I just wanted to explain most of this we've gone over already. Go ahead, Mr. Thomas.
Okay, as stated, small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, go from plan development, which it is right now, to commercial. So a total of 3 parcels with frontage on State Road 45, and it's just under an acre. It was originally part of the Oakview Village plan development, but not included ultimately in the development. Church has entered, as I said, into a sales agreement with Ms. Tate, contingent upon the successful land use change and rezoning. And the change in land use is consistent with the development pattern along the corridor that it's on, and as well as the Newberry Comprehensive Plan future land use element. The surrounding properties are future land use categories of plan development, commercial, public, and residential low density. Give you a perspective of where it's at. You can see down at towards the very bottom, the little highlighted section or outlined section is the property. You can see how the commercial development pattern goes down the transportation corridors through Newberry. Blow up of the property. It is a bunch of small parcels that are basically being cobbled together. And the notifications that went out, 400-foot perimeter around the property for any of the residents or business owners in the area to respond. We've had no communication from anybody who was sent notification. And staff's recommendation is to enact Ordinance 2019-09 on second reading.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Do we have any public comment on the staff report? Okay, hearing none, does the applicant's husband wish to cross-examine staff? Okay. Does the board have any questions for staff?
One more question.
Commissioner Glanzer.
I love that we're closing up that gap with that commercial, but if they're right up against this subdivision, so if they ever come up and want to do more intense development there, they'd have to get approval for barriers and that kind of thing. So just so the public knows, we're not going to be putting commercial up against the subdivision without barriers.
Do you follow that, Mr. Thomas?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Certain things in the commercial land use and then ultimately the commercial intensive rezoning and be by right, but when they abut residential, there's still some buffering requirements and things for more intensive uses, is correct.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Okay, I'm going to assume that the applicant doesn't want to make a final argument as well. Mr. Attorney, do you have anything you want to advise the board of?
Just a reminder that the decision needs to be made based on substantial and competent evidence. That's the issue before the board.
Okay, thank you. We'll now close the quasi-judicial and enter into deliberations. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Are you ready to make a motion on the ordinance that the attorney read into the record?
Motion to approve?
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Glanzer. I have a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. I have a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Are there any questions from the dais on the motion on the floor? Any public questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move right into the next one. Thank you for not leaving, Mr. Thomas. We're going to re-enter quasi-judicial. I'm not going to read those over again, but staff will now enter the staff overview for 2910. I'm sorry, before you do that, Mr. Attorney, will you please read by title only?
Let me also ask,
Okay.
other,
Thank you.
have the commissioners had any ex parte communications regarding the matter?
Commissioner Goldman?
No, sir. No.
Commissioner?
Nope.
And neither have I. Thank you. Now we read the ordinance by title only.
Absolutely. Ordinance number 2019-10, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of less than 5% of the total land area of the city pursuant to an application by Newberry Church of God, DBA Destiny Community Church owner, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry land development regulations, providing for rezoning from planned development, PD, and industrial I to commercial intensive, CI, on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Mr. Thomas, will you give us the overview?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The overview is essentially the same properties involved. This is just the going from the land use to the actual zoning district category. The applicant is requesting rezoning to commercial intensive, which would allow for the operation of a daycare center by right.
And do you want to go ahead and give us staff's recommendation since the applicant's not here?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, for all the reasons quoted before, again, we'll zip through what we've already seen, but it's going from industrial to commercial intensive, which fills in the development pattern for commercial intensive along those corridors, and therefore staff's recommendation is that the commission enact 2019-10 on second reading.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Are there any public comments? Hearing none. Okay, board, do you have any questions for staff on this item? No? Okay. Mr. Attorney, anything you want to advise? Same comment?
Standard applies,
Okay.
substantial and competent evidence.
Thank you. We'll now close the quasi-judicial hearing, enter into deliberations. Anybody think of a question in the last 10 seconds? Are we ready for a motion?
Motion to approve 2019-10.
I have a motion from Commissioner Herson and a second from Commissioner Coleman. Are there any questions from the dais on the motion on the floor? Any questions from the public on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, the next item, Brian's still here with us, but we are now back in legislative. Mr. Attorney, will you go ahead and read the ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 2019-02, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended relating to amendments to the text of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan under the regular amendment procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 Florida statutes relating to solar farm development by amending policies I.6.1.2, I.6.2.2, I.6.2.3, and I.6.4.1 of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. All right, Mr. Thomas, would you please make your presentation to the board?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the amendments before you. One's a comprehensive plan amendment, and the other will be a land development regulation amendment, both geared towards making solar farms, the location of solar farms in certain land use categories, a acceptable use by right, both in the comp plan and in the land development regulations. This is the second reading. It has been after the first reading, in which the commission voted unanimously to approve on first reading. It was transmitted to the State Department of Economic Opportunity for review, expedited review. It came back with no comments, no recommendations. And so we're back before you for the second hearing. As stated before, this is it's a very low impact use. The leases usually run for at least 30 years. And when they're done, they pull the stakes up and go. They don't even use concrete to mount the stakes. They're driven into the ground so that it's minimal impact on the land when it's reclaimed later for farming or other use. Very quiet, and they are required to meet or exceed Florida wind code. So we don't have to worry about them flying away in a big storm or hurricane. It is a benefit to the community in that it diversifies the local ad valorem tax base. It can create jobs in terms of maintenance and other activities surrounding the solar farms. It is contributing to emission-free electric energy generation. And again, it can be reclaimed after 20, 30, 40 years down the road if they choose not to install new panels at that time. The city attorney stated the different policy areas where there will be amendments made. It basically adds them as an allowable use under corporate park, industrial, planned developments, agricultural, and public land use classifications. One amendment that the Planning and Zoning Board recommended was the change it to specify photovoltaic energy facilities, commonly referred to as solar farms, rather than a broader interpretation of alternative energy sources, which could mean a lot of other things. The change would mean that solar farms would be allowed by right. They would not have to come back in for any kind of a special exception or special use permit. Only the site plan application would ultimately be reviewed by the city, which is a hearing by Planning and Zoning Board and one by the Board of Adjustment. And so staff recommendation is to enact ordinance 2019-02, amending comprehensive plan in the city of Newberry.
Okay, before we entertain a motion, does anyone have any questions for staff? No? Okay, then I'll take a motion at this time.
Motion to approve?
I have a motion from Commissioner Glanzer about the ordinance that was read. Do I have a second? A second from Commissioner Coleman. Does the commission have any questions on the motion on the floor? Does the public have any questions on the motion on the floor?
Hey, good evening, Craig Brazier with CHW. First of all, I just wanted to commend y'all for moving these text amendments this far into the process, and I would encourage you to approve them this evening as staff has presented them, because we do work with some large-scale energy providers, and I can tell you that these amendments will greatly enhance your opportunities to attract this type of facility. So, and there again, I would ask that you approve these as presented to you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you coming here tonight. Any further questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. And before we move on from this, I just want to say, once again, Newberry proves why we are progressively conservative. Right? This is pretty awesome. I hope that we're able to work something out and bring some jobs and some development to the city of Newberry. Okay, Mr. Thomas, you have a busy night tonight, and we are still legislative. Item D, legislative, second reading of ordinance 2019-03. Do we need to have a powwow? No? All right, Mr. Attorney.
Ordinance number 2019-03, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending the text of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations as amended to amend sections 2.1, definitions, 4.4A, agricultural, 4.17I, industrial, 4.18 PRRD, planned rural residential development, and 4.21 PD, planned development, relating to establishing standards for the development of solar farms and establishing allowable zoning districts, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Mr. Thomas, will you please make your presentation to the board?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the companion ordinance, which changes the text of the land development regulations, again, with the intent to make solar farms allowable by right in certain categories. The attorney stated those in the title. The list goes on. There were quite a few more sections to amend. Again, this is the second reading as well. It was passed unanimously on first reading back in January. They basically would allow solar farms by right. Again, only the site plan application would be reviewed. And staff recommendation is to approve ordinance 2019-03 on second reading.
Okay, does the board have any questions for staff? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth and a second from Commissioner Coleman. Does the dais have any questions on the motion on the floor?
No.
Does the public have any questions on the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Bring on the solar farm. All right, now we will re-enter quasi judicial. Same procedures apply. I haven't seen anyone new walk in. So could we begin, Mr. Attorney, by reading 2019-08 by title only?
Ordinance number 2019-08, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida pursuant to Article 4 of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations as amended relating to amendments to the adopted development order number 13-11 preliminary development plan and development agreement pursuant to an application by the property owner to amend the Canterbury Plan Development PD to allow for use as the Alachua County Agricultural and Equestrian Event Center on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Mr. Coleman, do you have, Commissioner Coleman, do you have any ex parte to report?
I have no.
Commissioner Herson?
No, besides I live in the
Mr. Attorney.
That doesn't constitute as
Okay.
communications.
none.
None for Commissioner Herson,
No.
none for Commissioner Farnsworth, none for Commissioner Glanzer, none for myself. Okay, that's ex parte. Mr. Thompson, will you give the staff overview, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a amendment to the existing plan development that governs the development of what's known as the Canterbury Plan Development. The original plan development was intended to ultimately develop out as commercial and residential mixed use. As you're well aware, the county has entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the current owner to use the facility as an equestrian and agricultural event center for Alachua County. And the consultant for the county is here with the presentation as well.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. All right, in this case, the applicant is the county. And you have no time limit.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Ryan Thompson, Planning Project Manager with CHW, agent for the applicant. The reason we are here is to ensure that the uses permitted within the PD are consistent with the intent to use the property as the County Agriculture and Equestrian Center. I have a very brief presentation that
Please.
I'll give you.
Go ahead.
I would like to note that the Planning and Zoning Board, we did hear both the board and the community's concerns. We amended the zoning master plan, the language to require a buffer along all residential properties, as well as amend the development order to be consistent with the intent for the property. All standards, including development and performance standards, will be the more stringent of the county or the city, and where is appropriate, we've been explicit about what those standards would be within the development order. As was stated by the county, a lot of the events that have been occurring on the property are consistent with the future use of the property. So there won't be a substantial change in how the property is being used in the future.
Sometimes we have trouble with that clicker. Is the little light on the
Is there
side?
a direction that I should?
If not, just raise your hand and Miss Amy will move you through the, oh, there you go.
There we go. Thank you. Again, the intent is to amend the Canterbury Plan Development permitted uses to ensure that it could be used as the Agriculture and Equestrian Event Center. We're before you this evening for the first reading of this item. We have followed the City of Newberry's application process to amend plan development, and with your recommendation of approval, we'll be before you again for second reading in April. This is a historic aerial from 1999. You can see the facilities on the subject property are very similar to what they are today. It was predominantly agriculture and large lot residential around the subject property. If we fast forward 6 years from then to 2004, you can see the development of Newberry Oaks starting from the west. And then again, in 2018, you can see the development adjacent to the property and extensively to the north. But predominantly, the uses on the Canterbury site have been consistent throughout that time. This is a close-up of the subject property. 232nd Terrace is along the west side that connects directly to Newberry Road. And these are adjacent developments around it. The future land use for the property is planned development, as well as the zoning. We're retaining the planned development zoning district, but it will be amended with respect to the permitted uses. The existing zoning master plan for the subject property is here. There's not a whole lot of detail on this property. There is a differentiation between a commercial area and a mixed-use area. The primary difference being that the mixed-use area allows residential. That has been removed from this application. This is the proposed zoning master plan. You see the project boundary, the developable area, and the buffers along the north and the west. When we were before the Planning and Zoning Board, we had a 50-foot buffer along the north where residential properties are adjacent. Based on the comments and information that we received that evening, we also extended the buffer along the west side. Ingress and egress to the subject property. There are currently 2 driveways along 232nd. Those driveways will remain, and a potential access point to the east is indicated on the zoning master plan. The setbacks are consistent with the previous development order. This is a list of the proposed permitted uses. It's retained a majority of what was previously permitted on the site, as well as some additional uses consistent with the the agreement between the property owner, the county, and the city of Newberry. Those uses are to ensure that it could be used as an equestrian agriculture center. We had some lengthy discussion about those at the previous meeting. Some of these, if taken out of context, may appear inappropriate for the site, but with respect to the scale of the site, the size of facilities that would be on the site, and the intended use of the property, these uses are appropriate. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, does the board have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Glancer?
Just curious, the timing of putting that entrance on the east, will that align up with the IFAS campus when it eventually comes? You know, wait till they come, or I guess you'll just leave it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that is the intent of that
Okay.
access point.
Good.
Does the board have any other questions of the applicant? Commissioner Herson?
Yeah, looking at the proposed permitted uses, as I look at that, it says the underlined items are proposed and not currently permitted, but as I look at that list, some of those things have happened on the Canterbury site.
That is correct. It may not have been explicit, but it was consistent with the intended use of that property. That's the purpose of this application, is to ensure that those uses are permitted by right.
So going forward, there won't be anything different happening there that hasn't already happened there in the past 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years?
Correct, Mr. Mayor. There,
I would say, in essence, absolutely. I don't want to in any way come off as binding the county's hand to say, well, this never happened there before, and you said nothing would ever happen there before. So I think it's the intent of the grounds, the site, that we want to focus on more than, I think your point is that the bulk of folks' concerns has already been permitted there forever.
Right, yeah, what is planned to go on there has gone on there since before Newberry Oaks subdevelopment was there.
correct.
Okay, does the board have any other questions for the applicant? Okay, Mr. Thomas, would you please come give staff report? And while you also have no time limits, we know how you like to speed through.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, as was already stated by the agent for the applicant, it is a request to amend the existing development order. It will be replaced with Development Order 19-01. The history, obviously, it has been an equestrian center for decades now. In 2013, the Canterbury Showplace Incorporated changed the land use from agricultural to planned development with the intent that eventually it would sell and develop out as a more intensive commercial and residential development. 14, it was rezoned also to planned development to facilitate that. It didn't develop out that way. There's the aerial view. You're all, I'm sure, very familiar with the area in question. And so the existing land use surrounding the property right now is a mix of commercial, low-density residential, corporate park, and then across the south side of Newberry Road is agriculture. The adjacent zoning categories, again, to the west is commercial intensive, to the rear is residential single-family 2. Agriculture still to the east, and agriculture to the south. The current development order 13-11 allows for up to 160,000 square feet of non-residential space and up to 100 residential units. As you're well aware, the county has entered into a purchase agreement with Canterbury Showplace Incorporated to turn it into the Alachua County Agricultural and Equestrian Event Center. CHW has been working with staff to write up the amendments to the development order. And so the proposed amendments would basically eliminate, do a strike through on all the existing permitted uses and prohibited uses and replace it all with the list that's been presented before you in the draft development order. And for the items that are not specifically addressed in the development order, as the agent, as Brian said, the county has committed to applying the more stringent of the 2 jurisdictional requirements for anything such as lighting or that kind of thing. And so there's a fairly long list of the permitted uses. You've got them in your packet under the draft development order. If there's any questions, staff recommends approval on first reading of ordinance 2019-08.
Okay, does the board have any questions for staff? Hearing none, we will now move to an opportunity for the public to comment. Anyone is free to take the podium. You have 3 minutes. You can make a comment on either the applicant's presentation or the staff's presentation. Okay, seeing none, it's always a good sign. I take that as a good sign. Does the applicant wish to cross-examine? Did you hear anything in the staff's presentation that you? Okay. Does the staff wish to cross-examine during anything in the applicant's presentation? Okay. Does anyone on the dais have any further questions for either the applicant or staff? Does the applicant have a final argument to be made? Okay. Mr. Attorney, will you advise the body on any applicable law?
We're governed by the same standards, substantial and competent evidence.
Thank you. Okay, we will now close the deliberation. We'll close the quasi judicial and enter into deliberations of the application. Commissioner Glanz?
I just can't let this moment pass without saying that for so long, we've been at risk of losing Canterbury to high-density development, and thanks to the county's cooperation and foresight to bringing the agricultural center out here in the fairgrounds, we're just grateful, and it's a historic moment. So thank you, Commissioner Pinkeson and County Manager, for coming tonight. Thanks.
I would echo that this is a historical moment. Excuse me. The only comment I have would be I'm just going to throw this out there. Maybe you guys could think about changing the name one more time to the Alachua County Agricultural and Fair Center at Canterbury. Just throwing it out there. I think there's some value to that word, that name, Canterbury. With that, any further deliberations? Okay, we've read the ordinance by title only, correct? So we have that into the record. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion,
You go ahead, man.
motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Hersom.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Coleman. He beat you with the hand signal there. Okay, any questions on the motion on the floor? Does the public have any questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Well done to the county, well done to the staff. When you get to this point in a project like this, and you've been able miraculously to answer everyone's concerns, that is a moment to pat yourself on the back. So great job. Thank you all, the county, for being here. Thank our own staff for working tirelessly for you guys, for everything that you've done. What an achievement. Thank you all. All right, that moves us, finally, Brian gets a break, into agenda items. Remember that we removed item A, so new A is the Florida Municipal Power Agency Community Solar Opportunity. Mr. New, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Mr. Mayor, I believe former Mayor Bill Conrad is going to come up and speak a little bit to this issue. You have a staff report that kind of gives you a little bit of background, but I'll turn it over to former Mayor Bill Conrad.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Mayor, I haven't come before you in a while to talk to you about FMPA goings on, but it's good to be here again. Mayor Marlowe and I were in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago advocating for public power on my behalf, and Mayor Marlowe advocated for a lot of Newberry issues as well, and it was a very successful educational trip. And I gave you a handout that has a couple of items that I hope you'll take the time to read. A couple of things that are going on in the country having to do with climate control and 5G technology. Gives you a little taste of that, and those are some things that we got educated on while we're in Washington. But the thing I'm here to talk to you today about is the opportunity to get some solar power, community solar power here in Newberry. I'm excited to see that you all have approved solar farms as an agricultural endeavor that can be done by right now on farms, and I think we have a big push to build more solar farms. FMPA has built 3 75-megawatt solar farms, and just for your reference, it takes about 7 acres to build 1 megawatt of solar power. So a 75-megawatt solar farm is like 400 acres. It's a pretty good amount of land, and they pay a lot of taxes. That tangible property tax, as Commissioner Coleman is very familiar with, is where we get most of the money that comes in the city of Newberry. Florida Rock, or Argos, pays a huge amount of money for that big cement furnace that they have on their property. And solar farms would be similar in having a major investment in tangible property. I think it's upwards of $350 million to build a 500 acre solar farm. So lots of revenue coming into the city, and that's a good thing. We love agriculture, but they don't pay us much taxes. But this is an agricultural use that could change a lot of things around Newberry. Back in 2016, FMPA commissioned a survey on community solar power. It was a very good survey conducted by a highly respected company called Great Blue. It was a telephone survey, and it required the survey takers to call each respondent and take about 20 minutes in educating the person about what solar power is and getting their informed opinion on what their druthers were. And as a result of that survey, we found that 72% of our Newberry community believed that a need existed for solar energy, but yet only 34% indicated any interest in participating either in rooftop solar or community solar, and only 21% would be willing to pay more for solar power. 52% would not be at all likely to pay any more for solar power. Half believe that utility scale solar should be located in their city if we had it. And 73% of Newberry residents considered themselves to be environmentally conscious. Based on these results, Newberry Commission elected to opt out of the FMPA solar project, but other cities opted in, and they went forward and built 225 megawatts of solar power. It was very popular, fully subscribed, and more cities are wanting in. Even before project number 1 is opened up. They expect to open up later this year. They've already broken ground on it. It doesn't take too long to set those panels up and get them up and running and get them fed into a power grid.
Commissioner Coleman, what city?
They're in the Central Florida area, around Kissimmee.
A lot of members.
A lot has to do with where you can tie into the power grid, although we've heard that Duke, I think, is looking at the Newberry area, and that there is a tie-in nearby here that could be used for the city of Newberry. Anyway, based on that, FMPA has decided to go forward with a second project, and they're looking for subscribers. Some of the cities that are in Project 1, namely Orlando and Kissimmee, have made the announcement that their cities will be 100% solar powered by 2020, which is kind of a misnomer. What they're saying is the city hall, our street lights, our utility system will be solar powered through the subscription to FMPA solar project number 1. The city's percentage of the load is only about 7%, so you can subscribe to 7% and make that claim. I'm not recommending that Newberry do that, but
We would be a little more honest, we'd say.
Yeah.
100% of our city facilities are powered by.
So I'm here today to tell you about an opportunity, and not asking for any decisions today except to allow the staff to move forward and continue to explore this and bring something back to you. But we have done some back-of-the-envelope calculations and feel like Newberry could power City Hall, our city buildings, our utilities, street lights for a cost of about, what did we say, 10 bucks a month per utility subscriber?
The worst case scenario for all city load would be about $10 a year.
$10 a year.
And depending on how we do the math, if we said, well, we only wanted to do the general fund facilities, it'd be, probably in the $3 a year range in terms of resident impact. If we do the full load, it could push closer to $10 per year.
So you can socialize it over your utility customers, electric customers, or you could socialize it across all of your city residents in the general fund, no matter what power company they get their power from, is what he means by the general fund way to do it. But anyway, I think it's a good idea. Years ago, I recommended against it. I said, we're going for the cheapest power, whether it be coal or gas or whatever. But looking at the environment and the use of coal, which we get about 20% of our power from coal, and we have the opportunity to shut down some of our older coal plants. And as we build more solar, we get closer to shutting down the first coal plant. And no matter what you think about global warming, coal plants do put some bad stuff in the air. And if we can eliminate that, and of course we're not probably, Duke is getting ready to shut down some Crystal River coal plants in the 2020s, and we probably won't see the coal train coming through Newberry anymore after about 2022, although Argos, Florida Rock, still uses a lot of coal, but train wouldn't have to come
Stops
through
there,
town to get it to Argos. But anyway, I'm changing my my advice to you, and I'm saying we
Well,
probably
the cost
ought to
of solar, if I understand it right, the cost of solar has come down so much.
tremendously.
And
yeah.
it's FMPA's considered opinion that it's probably about rock bottom, like $3 a panel now. At some point, you can hardly get it. Can't
Yeah,
remember,
well,
$3 something.
Right. It's hard to compare solar to traditional fuels because solar is a big upfront cost and no fuel compared to a big upfront cost and the cost of fuel, coal, gas, or nuclear. So it's hard to compare apples to apples in that aspect. But I will say that the federal government subsidizes solar by about 30% with a 30% tax cut, and that tax cut begins to roll off in 2020. So 2019 is probably the last year that we're going to get the big tax cut. That is at the bottom. The cost of solar panels has gone down, down, down. They're made in China, and the feeling in the industry is that they're as low as they can possibly be for solar panels, and it's only going to go up from here. So that's why I'm thinking now is the time to get into solar if you want to get into it at the bottom of the curve. So,
And just to be clear for the board, what Mayor Conrad is asking is not yay or nay, just do you authorize staff to work with FMPA and come back with some numbers for you, which at 75 cents a month, sounds like it's something we should at least consider.
I would support that for sure, if we could. Have staff look at that.
Okay, so I think we just need a head nod at this point. So we get a head nod to keep on going, keep looking at the numbers.
you know, if you're not 100% behind it, you can get in a very small way
Very
if you
small
want to start off.
percentage.
And I think for the next couple of years, there's an on-ramp to the solar program, and if you decide you want to get in for more, or if you want to have a subscription service where if you have environmentally conscious utility subscribers that say, hey, I'd be willing to pay 20% more if all my electricity could be solar, that we could offer them that opportunity.
Okay. I mean, I think those kinds of options are exactly what our residents want. Give me some choices to make along the way. So it looks like you had a unanimous head nod to continue working with staff, bring back some options. You know, I think it's always pretty cool when a little city like Newberry can get in. And so the folks at home know what Mayor Conrad is suggesting isn't that anyone would build a solar farm here at Newberry to serve Newberry. It's that we would buy a percentage from FMPA, and they would say, okay, that percentage comes from our solar farm, this percentage comes from nuclear, this percentage comes from coal. Did I say that correct?
Make it part of our portfolio.
Make it part of our portfolio of offerings. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Any other questions for him?
Thank you very much.
Commissioner
Since he's got
Herson,
him
he had
here.
one.
I read in the report looking at the 30-year gas contract, and we were the lone dissent. What was driving everybody else other than just the fact that they were looking at trying to lock 30 years in?
Personally, I feel like the FMPA staff pushed it a little too hard. It was something they wanted to do. We have pushed staff to cut back to the bare bones, and we have cut the cost of electricity about 30% in the last 7 to 8 years. And I think this is a push too far. They entered into a 30-year contract for about 10% of our gas requirements that would save us a small percentage, 5 to 7% in the cost of gas, and commit us for 30 years. And I feel very uncomfortable about committing to anything in the power industry for 30 years because we don't know what's going to happen. If you could get the Green New Deal could come through and they could have a lot of stringent reductions. They could stop fracking, which would make natural gas no longer cheap and something that we wouldn't want to buy natural gas, we would go to our coal option. But if we have a take or pay contract to take natural gas, we could wind up with some very expensive gas. And when we got into this business, FMPA had made some decisions in hedging and interest rate swaps, which were very complex derivatives. And part of what caused the 2008 financial meltdown in this country, people didn't understand what they're buying. And I don't understand this. Has 5 different counterparties, and it involves us, FMPA, selling municipal bonds, tax-free, getting the money, prepaying gas, which is like a loan to a non-municipality who would otherwise have to pay taxable bonds to get the money. So it would take advantage of the difference between tax-free bonds and taxable bonds. And then we would be prepaid for gas for 30 years at a discount from the index. But it's very complex, and I didn't completely understand it, and I don't think anybody else does either, so I was against it. But we've only got 10% of our requirements done, and if they come back with another one, I'll fight it even harder and try to get the rest of the board members to agree with me.
Well, that's a good note to say that, once again, you know, this board and this city appreciates the work that you've done to reduce those electric rates over the last 7 or 8 years. It's been amazing, the amount of work that you've put into that. We've certainly been happy to take advantage of you, even after you stepped down off of the dais and your position as chair. I understand that that's coming to an end, and
It is.
you're not allowed to run. We're going to work with FMPA to figure out some loophole to keep you there, and use your services as long as we can. But
Yeah. Well, I have enjoyed it, and anytime anybody else wants to step into that role, I'll be glad to let you have it.
Well, we do appreciate you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Okay, Miss Judy, will you take us through our election schedule, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. I'm here to talk about the election schedule, and I think one of the first things we need to do is appoint our Board of Canvassers for the 2019 election. I have spoke with our supervisor, Alachua County Supervisor of Elections, and there are 4 important dates. 2 of them, Monday, April the 1st, and Tuesday, April the 9th. Those 2 times are not negotiable.
Is it Monday, April the 1st or Monday, April the 8th? I thought we did it the day before. Is it a week before?
Monday, April the 1st
It is the
is
1st.
when our logic and accuracy test will be done, and the transfer of custody of the equipment to the city clerk. And that date was given to me by Alachua County.
Okay.
There weren't any other dates available, and that will be at 10:30 a.m. And the Tuesday, April the 9th, I think, Mayor, that you may be referring to, is when we canvass the vote by mail ballots at 6 p.m. Right?
I thought we checked the machines the day before, but I just have that wrong in my memory.
It's
Just
okay.
wanted to confirm.
Okay. Then we will need to also announce when we're going to have the special meeting for swearing in of commissioners and certifying the votes, so that I can get that posted and published in the different areas. And then we will have our manual equipment audit, which has to be done within 7 days of the certifying of the ballots.
Okay. All right, well, let's start with the canvassing board. That will be Mayor Pro Tem Tim Martin, myself, Citizen Gail Watson has also agreed, and we have some questions about legal staff. We have some questions to legal after the meeting about the canvassing board, so we may update that as we go. The other is the swearing in date and time, which we have moved in the last couple of years to Wednesday at night instead of Wednesday at 12. Do we want to keep that time period? It's the day after the election. 7 o'clock means the families can come and those kinds of things. Get a head nod on that. Okay, that was easy.
Yes, it was.
And then the ballot audit date, Thursday. In your backup material, it said 11:15. That one we have a little bit of control over. If we can make that 11:30,
30?
that would be better for me. I can't get here at 11:15. Is that good? Everybody clear with that? Do we need a motion for that, or is a head nod? A motion for all of those things?
Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the election schedule as read?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth,
Second.
a second from Commissioner Coleman. Any questions about the election schedule?
So who's all on the canvassing board?
By charter, it is the mayor pro tem, and one citizen who is not a voting member. They're there to witness everything. By charter.
And the city clerk.
And the city clerk,
Clerk.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. We've updated, yes, we've gone to the charter and clarified exactly what it is, and that's in the charter. But I'm scheduled to sit down with Scott after and chat about it. So I had a motion properly seconded. Any questions from the audience about the election day schedule? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We will move on to resolution 2019-13, which is about wild spaces. And I have this as Dallas, but I see Mr. Parker moving down, so it must be my mistake.
Good evening. And I apologize, but we do have a resolution on this. I don't know
go
that
right
it's
ahead.
in front of the commission right now, but I will read that in. It's resolution number 2019-13, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, adopting the funding and project plan for Newberry's use of the wild spaces, public places, discretionary sales surtax dollars, adopting amendments to the capital improvement plan, and providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Okay, Mr. Parker, you have a presentation for us?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and give us the presentation, please.
Good evening. So, since we've been talking about Canterbury tonight, I think it's an appropriate time to talk about wild spaces, public places. Staff's recommended action is to adopt Resolution 2019-13, which encompasses approving the wild spaces project plan and the finance plan. A little background, wild spaces, public places is a half-cent sales tax. The City of Newberry is looking at getting a total estimated funding amount of $3.4 million. We have an additional, well, the initial estimates were 2.9. We received an additional $400,000 from the county to go towards our multi-purpose fields at the Easton Complex.
So
right
that
now,
money's already allocated, so don't.
yeah, that
It's
money's-
they're already started on out there. So
We
keep the
have.
2.9 in your head, not the 3.4. Yeah.
Project locations remain unchanged from the initial presentation, except for the Canterbury Equestrian Center. We did, as you're aware, we entered into an agreement with the county to assist in the purchase of the Canterbury Center, and that was a $1 million investment. And then we also had an additional $300,000 that went towards the purchase of the 5 acres adjacent for the IFAS Extension Office, which is why we're here tonight, because we have to now adjust some of the plans that we had previously made. Easton Newberry Sports Complex remains mostly the same. We purchased the land, so we can start with the multipurpose fields and all the projects that go along with it, interior roads, lighting, paving, batting cages, RC park renovations, the maintenance shop, and the outdoor shelter.
Let me make sure that the commission understands what we spent more than a third on Canterbury, and we had already allocated our 2.9 to certain projects. So what Mr. Parker is reminding us of are the projects we already agreed to and we've already voted on, but now we are 1.325 shy of what we started. So he's going over what you guys have already approved. The basic gist is something's got to go. Okay.
And
go ahead, Mr. Parker.
for the most part, Easton remains unchanged, aside from the volume of what we're going to do as far as paving, concrete, etc. Most of that stayed. Jimmy Durden Park, we're going to improve the fence. This is the new plan. improve the fence, and then we've got 2 beach volleyball courts that are actually in progress now in the planning phase. And then Freddie Wormack Park, we're going to do baseball and softball field renovations. As you can see, the Martin Luther King Jr. Park, we've already started that. We got the playground structure, restroom, the picnic facilities. So we've done a lot of projects there already using Wild Spaces funding. Municipal building, we've also done some of these projects. Metal roof replacement we're in the process of now. Foundation repair has been done already. This plan provides kitchen renovations to the municipal building, and then the other miscellaneous projects are the planning expenses that have gone into it. Funding plan, this is just the breakdown. You see Canterbury at the top, the East Newberry Sports Complex, and then as it goes down, these projects at the locations in which they'll take place. We broke it down on a basis where the major projects would be over the course of 2 years. First year would be a planning, any architecture, any engineering, that kind of stuff that needs to be done, we'll do that year 1. Then we'll do construction year 2. And then as we go along, each project, while construction is going on, we'll be doing another planning of another large project. For example, the Easton multipurpose fields won't be in construction at the same time as we're paving. They won't be in planning and one will be in construction. And again, our recommended action is to adopt resolution 2019-13, which goes over the projects we just went over.
Okay, does the commission have any questions for Mr. Parker? Mr. Herson? Mr. Commissioner Farnsworth. There we go. I get it right eventually.
I guess.
Yeah.
How long will it take for all these projects to be completed?
We have them through 2025.
Is that when the money runs out from Wild Spaces?
It does.
Okay. Any further? And I believe the philosophy is we don't come across 1.7 million very often, and Easton has some things we wouldn't allow other folks to do, like have a dirt parking lot. So we need to get those things fixed and up to code. Any further questions from the dais? Does the public have any questions on your Wild Spaces public places money? Gonna make some park improvements, gonna make some big improvements to Easton, and we're gonna bring the agricultural and youth fairs to the city of Newberry. Commissioner Coleman?
Is Easton are they gonna throw anything in this on these upgrades over at Easton?
I mean, right now, we haven't discussed that with them.
And Mr. Mayor, I don't anticipate, our original development agreement with them was they would put up so much and the city would provide so much. The city hasn't provided the so much yet. And then when you sit down and meet to discuss that with Easton, they're never bashful about reminding us of that.
Okay, hearing no public comment, questions. Come back to the floor. We've read the resolution. We have a motion and a second. Do we have a motion and a second? We do not. Can I have a motion
Move to approve resolution 2019-13.
We have a motion from Commissioner Coleman.
Second.
Properly seconded by Commissioner Farnsworth. Okay, now is there any questions from the dais on the motion on the floor? Any public questions on the motion on the floor? Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask for qualification? Does the motion include also the approval of the Wild Spaces plan and the funding plan?
I thought that's what we were talking about.
I agree. It's
Okay.
the resolution. I
Just
just want to make certain.
All right. So back to the public. Any public questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. And we're on to execution of a railroad reimbursement. Mr. Jones, you've waited patiently all night through all those quasi-judicials. Finally get your turn.
Oh, yes, it's been a lot of fun.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize.
Go ahead.
I'm going to read it in.
Read it in.
For the record. This is Resolution 2019-11, a resolution authorizing execution of a railroad reimbursement agreement for the installation of grade crossing traffic control devices and future maintenance and adjustment of said devices, providing for the expenditure of funds and providing when this resolution shall take effect.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Jones, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor, Commissioners. The item before you is in relations to Northwest First Avenue. We've been asked to participate in a agreement for the reimbursement of the maintenance cost of the installation of a railroad signal improvement. Consists of flashing lights, gates, pedestrian gates, cabinet, and all their appurtenances here on First Avenue. FDOT would pay 100% of the installation cost, which is estimated to be $177,135. The annual maintenance cost would be split between the City of Newberry and the Florida Northern Railroad. That's estimated to be $3,600, which we're responsible for 50%. What we're requesting the Commission to approve this resolution, support the execution, and authorize the City Manager to execute all documents for the agreement.
Does the Commission have any questions for Mr. Jones? Commissioner Farnsworth?
Whenever they closed Second Avenue, the railroad, they did that unilaterally, and yet they want us to pay half of the maintenance on the other crossings.
I believe that was actually closing and discontinuing the actual crossing itself. We do currently participate in several other signalized railroad crossings at the same rate of 50%.
I guess the Commissioner's question is, why would we, my memory of closing the second, they agreed to landscape it, beautify it. They didn't do that. So I would like to see them uphold their end of the agreement before this body agrees to. I'm not disagreeing with sharing the maintenance cost, but I think in terms of being good partners, everybody needs to fulfill what they promised to do before we move into another relationship.
I can certainly, if it's the Commission's pleasure, to research that issue and get with FDOT about it. That closing happened prior to my arrival here, and I'm not familiar with the circumstances.
Mr. New, do you have anything you want to add to that conversation?
Mr. Mayor, we researched this fairly extensively, maybe two and a half years ago. I think that Florida Northern's recollection and the evidence that they put forth was there was an initial offer to provide some of those amenities, but the city didn't take them up on that, and somewhere down the road the offer changed and it became what it became. Now that doesn't mean that staff wouldn't exhaust every opportunity to try to get anything that the Commission desires, but I recall that the railroad crossing was closed before I started working here, but the Commission did ask us to do the research, and I believe we presented it in public meetings, what we found. I don't recall it off the top of my head, but we'll be happy to research that as well.
I distinctly remember the meeting where they verbally promised the visual upgrades. So I do not recall ever getting something in writing, but I remember that this board was against the closing. We were advised by legal that probably wasn't a fight we could win in court, but we did ask that if you're going to close it, we don't want it to be an eyesore. And the representatives that stood in front of us said, no problem, we'll put some shrubbery on it. I think the city bore the cost of busting up the west side of the road and planting grass to make that look a little bit more attractive. So I would recommend to the board that before we agree, if I need to go back and try to find that video and we can show,
sure,
I'll be glad to do that research. I would grant that nothing ever came across this board in writing, but certainly a verbal commitment was made. And again, I'm not opposed to us being partners, good partners, but it needs to be partners. Can't just be a one-way street. Commissioner Farnsworth.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, the city does not own the railroad crossings. why are we having to pay to maintain them?
Mr. Jones, you want to take a crack at that? I mean, I would have the same question after we get past the landscaping issue.
Mr. Mayor, we actually do have a permitted street that crosses the railroad right away. So the railroad owns it, and we have permission to access across it for vehicular traffic. I was involved with the removal of the asphalt and the planting of the grass on the west side, but as Mike stated, the actual closing occurred before I arrived, and I do recall that there was a discussion at the commission meeting. I don't remember the result of that, but I'll be happy to go back and research it.
I remember it crystal clear. We do have some members of the Newberry Garden Club here. Maybe they might take up the beautification of one side of it, and then we'll submit an invoice to the railroad. I hear they have plenty of money. So, so what do we want to do tonight? We want to ask staff to go back and talk to, is it Northern or CSX that we are in this conversation?
This agreement is with the FDOT for the actual construction and improvement. The maintenance is actually split between Florida Northern and the city of Newberry.
Okay. Are we under any time considerations the commission needs to know about?
DOT has asked that we execute this and the next agenda item and transmit back to them by the end of March.
That's the month we're in? So we're probably, I just have to check sometimes, you know.
Which year? Yeah. Which year? It was
Yeah.
Which year?
2020? Perfect.
What's our
Perfect.
penalty if we don't?
Yeah, what's the alternative if we don't approve this?
I mean, that's their request. It's not,
Okay.
you're under no obligation to grant their request, and you're under no obligation to grant their request on a timeline. We have, certainly we have a really good partnership with FDOT. My conversations with staff have never said, never led me to believe otherwise. So I don't want to pollute that ground. We have a more rocky relationship with our railroad friends who we have partnered with to varying degrees of success in the past. So I don't want to punish FDOT for this, but I think we have to ask this question, and we need a resolution on this, because if someone's going to come in front of us and make a promise and then not fulfill it, then we need to understand that before we enter into new agreements with them. Commissioner Herson?
Who's the other 50% responsible? What's the other responsible party in the maintenance? Is it FDOT or the railroad?
Florida Northern Railroad.
So it's Florida Northern for 25, CSX for 25, Newberry for 50?
No, sir. It's Florida Northern for 50% and the city of Newberry for 50% of the $3,600 annually.
Okay, for 2 crossings.
No, that's each crossing, $3,600 for each crossing.
Each crossing, but we have 2 crossings.
Yes, you're voting on one on First Avenue now, and the one on 252nd comes before you next.
Okay.
That's whatever we currently are under contract with, or?
No, you currently are under contract for 2 south of town that you have executed in the last 2 years.
Did you say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Have they taken into consideration the one-way pairs, or?
I've had extensive conversations with them on several occasions in the past 2 weeks about the one-way pairs. I actually requested that they delay the installation until the one-way pair it was constructed. Their tact is, due to some federal regulations and the fact that they think they can salvage the equipment, the safety considerations is worth the potential of having to redo the installation when the twin pairs are constructed.
And in my memory, the other ones that we've entered into agreement with, they made considerable upgrades to the crossing in close proximity to that agreement.
That is correct.
So I know the one out on 30th is much better than it's ever been. So they put the money in to make that make it very nice. We agreed to help maintain it. And this is our first, this is our first interaction with the railroad since then. So does the board certainly doesn't have to take my suggestion. If you're ready to just go ahead and enter into the agreement or not enter into the agreement, or you want to table it until we come back with more information about the landscaping.
One question.
Commissioner Glanzer?
Did you say $3,600 per crossing is what?
$3,600 per
So ours is
crossing.
$1,800
And ours is
per
18.
crossing, and we have 4 crossings.
We're already in
Just these 2 are
agreement
what
with
we're
2.
talking, okay.
This
So
is
on
just the
these
2 here.
Commissioner Coleman?
I think this is more with DOT, which we're tying their hands on something that they're needing that they had nothing to do with. I know that we're gonna have to pay half the maintenance, and so is Northern, but I think this is more for us to pass this so DOT can do their thing, isn't it? I mean, I understand that they're also named in here, but,
Mr. Mayor, Florida Northern is not requesting that the signal be installed. City of Newberry is not requesting that the signal be installed. FDOT is. And basically, they look for a resolution of support and the split of the maintenance costs between the two entities.
Has Northern agreed to it?
I do not know.
So we've been asked to agree to it before Northern's been asked to agree to it?
I'm assuming that they're both running parallel.
Okay.
well, with the coal not heading that way, they might not be.
Commissioner Herson?
Are the other crossings that we support from a maintenance standpoint charged at the same rate?
Yes, sir.
You want to hear from the public before you make a decision? Well, we need a motion on the floor.
I want to hear from staff, I want to hear from Mike.
Mike, what's your
His
feel?
opinion on this.
Is it are we dealing more with FDOT or more with Northern Railroad here?
Right,
It's a good question, Commissioner Coleman.
I think Jamie's probably in a better position to answer that than me.
Basically, it's an FDOT agreement with Florida Northern and the city of Newberry agreeing to be parties in the split maintenance cost.
That sounds more like it has to do with FDOT.
I agree. So if we approve this, it'll set the course for saying they have to agree, or they can still back
That's
out
not-
and we up for all of it?
That's not how I understand it either. I think that if we agree, we'd just be agreeing to half.
I'm looking at the, in the agenda packet, it looks like there is a signature in the, from Florida Northern.
They have agreed.
I think they've already agreed on both agreements, this resolution and the next one. And another way to pose the motion would be pass the resolution subject to confirming that Florida Northern has already agreed.
Just with regards to the landscaping project, I mean, our relationship with Florida Northern is not every day. And sometimes I find that it takes a few emails to get their attention. But when we do get their attention, I find them to be very candid and willing to work. They brought a team to Newberry to discuss a project in town, and they were as compromising as they could be. So I think that if we want to have the conversation with them about second again, we'll research our notes. I think we could do that separate and apart from this, and wouldn't need to hold off on this to have that conversation. And like I said, if the commission would like for us to do it, we'd get on that this week.
You want to put that into the motion? I don't think that actually needs to be in the motion. The motion
No,
is, do we want to enter into this partnership or not?
I don't want staff to spend too much time on trying to get some bushes out there, to be honest with you. I mean, I think within the next 5 years, that all that's gonna be tore up, and we're gonna have single pairs, and things are gonna change anyway. So I say, let's don't kick the can down the road over some bushes. Let's go ahead and vote this thing in and rock and roll with it.
So we haven't asked for the signal, and Northern hasn't asked for the signal, but FDOT thinks the signal for the two-way pairs?
FDOT is responsible for coordinating with the Federal Railroad Commission to inspect rail crossings that impact local, state, and county roads to determine if there's safety improvements needed. And based on their research, they've determined that the signals and the warning indications needed to be improved and upgraded at these two locations.
Okay. Okay, let's entertain a motion, one way or the other.
On both of them?
No,
11 and 12?
Just
11?
11.
Move to approve, resolution 2019-11 as written.
Do I have a second for that motion?
A second.
I have a second from Commissioner Glanz. Is there any further questions from the dais on the motion on the floor?
Roll call.
Any questions from the public on the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none, we'll start with Commissioner Coleman.
Aye.
Commissioner Herson.
Aye.
Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Glanzer? Motion passes 3-1. Thank you. Don't go far, Jamie. Mr. Attorney, will you read Resolution 2019-12 into the record for us?
Resolution 2019-12, a resolution authorizing execution of a railroad reimbursement agreement for the installation of grade crossing traffic control devices and future maintenance and adjustment of said services, providing for the expenditure of funds and providing when this resolution shall take effect.
I assume it's the same presentation?
Same presentation, the only difference is there's a difference in the installation cost. FDOT would be paying $215,459, 100% of the installation. And once again, we would be entering into agreement to split the maintenance cost of $3,600.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I know I'm kicking a dead horse here, but the 252nd, were they supposed to put bushes there too?
No.
I just wanted to know. Only first?
Yeah, yeah. Just the eyesore.
Second.
Second, yeah.
Second, I meant it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, do I have a motion for Resolution 2019-12?
I make a motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Glanzer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Coleman. Any questions for Mr. Jones on Resolution 2019-12? Does the public have any questions on Resolution 2019-12? Hearing none, all those in favor, note Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
Commissioner Herson?
Aye.
Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Glanzer? Motion passes 3-1. All right, and believe it or not, at 8:42 with a 3-page agenda, we are
9:15.
at comments. And we have to start with city manager, who's only got 6 pages.
Mr. Mayor, just want to make the commission aware that this week is Florida League of Cities Legislative Week in Tallahassee. So Brian and I will be traveling along with Commissioner Herson and Commissioner Glanzer to Tallahassee tomorrow to visit with our local delegation, speak about issues that are important in Newberry, see if we can't change a mind and get the Florida legislature to fall in love with local government like we all are. And we know that Commissioner Herson and Commissioner Glanzer have just the right things to say to make that happen. Also, we have annexation referendum ballot that we discussed often on the commission. That is going to be mailed out this coming Wednesday, March the 27th, and those ballots are to be returned to the supervisor of elections by April the 16th at 7 p.m. And finally, we're in election season. Staff goes and does 2 things, and these are maybes. As you know, you've all sat through a very fun and inspiring Newberry 101, 4-hour Newberry 101. So we are proposing to do that. We're proposing to do that on Tuesday following the election, which would be Tuesday the 16th, correct? At 6 or 7 p.m. for any elected officials that wish to return or proposed new elected officials. And then later in the month, we have EMO training, the Institute of Elected Municipal Officials, basic and advanced. I think that if any of you that have been through the basic and would like to travel to the advanced EMO training, please let us know. We'll schedule. There's also another one in October, so we can schedule you for one or the other, and basic if you haven't had it. And then that concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Attorney?
We have nothing.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk?
Just want to encourage everyone to call and request a ballot if you think you will not be able to, or if you choose not to vote at the election on April the 9th. You can call, email, or come into the office and pick up an absentee ballot. And another note that you cannot pick up an absentee ballot on election day without an emergency affidavit. So, and all other ballots must be returned by 7 p.m. on election day. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Coleman? Commissioner Herson?
Nothing today.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
I just want to congratulate the FSU team for getting to the Sweet 16. And
Commissioner Glanzer.
I had nothing tonight.
Wow, you guys cleared the way for me then. I appreciate it. I want to let everybody know that the senior class of Newberry High School has been an amazing class. They really have, from freshman to senior, they have worked really, really hard to put on school functions for their peers, from homecoming to powder puff, talent shows, decorating the school, you name it, they've been there. And it's their turn to have senior week. It's their chance to kick back and have some fun. And they would love some financial help. So if you can make a donation, contact Ms. Stanley at Newberry High School. It's 472-1101. I'm sure that some of our residents, maybe Miss Linda, might be willing to bake a pound cake to be auctioned off in their favor. They go well. But they deserve it. So any little bit helps. If people can give $5, $10, $25, that would be amazing. I also have been informed that Champions Park has contracted out with Woodyard Grill to run the concession stands, and Woodyard Grill has put the concession stands back in the hands of students around town. And I want to thank them for doing that. They've already managed to help 2 or 3 student organizations, so that's amazing. I appreciate that greatly. Don't forget West Fest. I can't believe the city manager didn't bring it up the second time. I know he made a public comment, but I was expecting another rally for it at the end. But April 13th from 3 to 8. We're going to have perfect weather. We've already preordained. It's going to be beautiful. Come on out. Obviously, April 9th, please get out and vote. Gainesville's turnout was 12%. So it's always hashtag beat Gainesville, right? So we are shooting for 15%, 20%, right? Get out and vote, right? We last year we 17%. Let's see if we can do better. We got to pick people up and bring them there, right? And then finally, on a more serious note, next week is spring break for Alachua County schools. Tomorrow we will be, Thursday we'll be having some presentations at the high school about drunk driving, driving under the influence, making sure you wear your seatbelt, making good decisions during that entire week. So it's an excellent opportunity for parents to speak to their children. We want all the kids to have a great time, but we want them all to come home and come back to school the next Monday. Finally, I just received, City of Newberry partnered with an organization at Buchholz High School called Warm Hearts. It's a student-led organization that has partnered with us in the fight against opioids. They created a video. I just posted it, and I'd ask everybody, it's on my page. I'm sure Commissioner Glanzer will share it. I asked the commissioner to share it. Everybody check it out. The things that our kids can do are simply amazing if we involve them. So check it out, share it. Let's get these kids as much press as they can. And that concludes my votes, or my comments.
Can I interrupt for one
Absolutely.
thing? Just like to start a little dais pressure for the seniors.
All right. Was it in a public meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, that's dais pressure right there.
Awesome. We appreciate it. Thank you both. Public comment. Come on down. Don't be shy. You've waited all night.
Good evening. Lisa Tate with Newberry Main Street. Just a last minute notice that came up. The Main Street, we've had our second successful farmers market from 4 to 7, had quite a bit of traffic. Really we're trying to rein it in and try to not get it too big for the Kincaid Corner right now. But I did want to mention I had an opportunity to speak to Mr. and Mrs. Norfleet as they left tonight, and I've spoken to Joy already that not tomorrow, but the 2nd, we will have Joy and Mr. Norfleet there having a booth at the farmers market. So you'll have also just a kind of a public forum opportunity to meet and talk with them a little bit too.
Thank you so much, Main Street, for doing that. And if you have not had a pickled egg in a while, or a pickled sausage, there, you got to go to the farmer's market. They do it just right. You guys got everything. They're organic food, fresh food, meat, all kinds of stuff. So go check it out. It's worth your time. Every Tuesday, 4 to 7, right here. Beautiful spot. Other public comment. Come on down. Don't be shy.
Hi,
Don't forget
my
to
name is
introduce
Lou Castor,
yourself.
and I'm new to the city of Newberry.
Welcome.
This is my first meeting, and I have a couple of things that I would like to address and to present to you. One is we bought a house in Countryway, and we're looking to put a shed in. I went to the city and the building and looked at the limits on how close I could set it. Right now it's 10 to my side and 15 from my back. Well, that's going to put my shed like right in the middle of my backyard. So what I would like for you to look at possibly doing, and I think there has been some discussion, I talked with Brian Thomas before, is at least either splitting those, like you want half for me and half for my neighbor, you know, whatever, or come up with a 5 and 5 so that it's back in the corner, you know, you can put them back in the corner, whatever. So if you know, at least talk about that and consider changing whatever for the whole city, not just for the subdivision that I'm in. The other thing is, when I pick up my grandchildren, okay, one of them is at the elementary school, and I have a concern. The field that I work in is security, and I know that we have agreements with DOC to do contract work with inmates. And one of the first times I was sitting here back in the fall, and I look over and I'm sitting beside the cemetery, and I didn't realize one of your city buildings was past that. Like I said, this is all new to me. And so I'm wondering, and I look up and I see the inmates with the guard and all that there. But I'm thinking, I'm sitting there waiting for my grandchildren to get out. Here's the work crew. What's wrong with this timing? So I would ask that you possibly relook at some of our contracts or the timing, that when the work crews or things are out amongst the kids and the people. And I also had someone mention it to me today, because there was a work crew out, and I don't know why they're working at the, is it Newberry Oaks? The new.
By Canterbury?
Right by Canterbury, actually.
Newberry Oaks.
The crews have been out there, and you have the kids that are getting off the buses, that are walking from point to point. And I guess they've been out there several days working or doing something, I'm not for sure. So I just asked that maybe you would relook at some of the contracts that we have with DOC and the work crews, and the timing that things happen, just from a security standpoint.
Okay.
Okay, and that's on my point, but on yours was, when's the last day to pick up a ballot for the city? If I were to come pick up a ballot?
You can pick up a ballot. Sorry. You can pick up a ballot up until 7 p.m. on election day, but if you pick a ballot up on election day, you must have a signed emergency affidavit in order to do that.
So
Okay, and
Monday, April 8th, you can
Okay.
pick up a ballot
Okay,
with nothing other
Right.
than the standard driver's license, proof of
Photo ID.
identification, that kind of thing.
okay. And the other was, when is senior week?
Senior Week, that's an excellent question. I am not the senior sponsor this year, but I believe it is the, it is gonna be last day, so it's gonna have to be April 22nd through the 26th. Because the last day of school is May 2nd, I believe, and it's the week before. So I believe, did you say the 15th?
I thought it.
So
yeah,
maybe it's the
I-
15th,
yeah.
April 15th through 19th? Does that sound more, better?
Yeah.
I'll have to
I
get
think
back
it was
to you
the
on that.
15th, she said.
April May the 16th.
Oh, May.
Well, that's,
May,
I'm sorry, that part of that week is May the 16th. I don't know.
May they're out of,
What week May the 16th.
oh, no, June 2nd is the last day. I'm saying May 2nd. That sounds right. All right, thank you, Miss Linda. Yes, yeah, I was giving myself some time off.
That's all.
And
Thank
you said you got with Mr. Thomas on
I
the other
did,
things.
and
Okay.
I've had the
Just
shed
checking.
on order, and I wasn't for sure,
Sure.
I haven't got it delivered or done anything yet, or even, I have the application to submit my permit. And I
Well,
know
you're
I
with
can
the
go
right
through the
guy.
variance, I
Yeah.
know I can go through a variance board, but to me, if they've had several, why make the people go through the variance board, and why put the load on the variance committee if, if you can just go in and have a normal 5 to 7 foot setback, from each side, each corner or whatever, and go that route,
Thank you,
rather
ma'am.
than making us do the variance. Thank you.
All right. Any other public comment? Miss Linda, you hardly ever come see us. You gotta say something.
I know, I've made
Yeah.
a commitment to myself. I'm
Is-
Linda Woodcock. I have made a commitment to myself that I will start coming to these meetings.
Awesome.
As much as I enjoy them, I've missed them. One, Jeannie Stanley sent me a message about a week ago. The Garden Club will be sponsoring a breakfast for the seniors, and we are supposed to have it on May the 16th.
May the 16th. May the
Supposed to
16th.
have eggs, sweets, potatoes, bread, and some kind of meat.
Awesome. Well, that means senior week is May 13th through 17th, because we always have the breakfast on the Thursday of senior week. Thank you, Newberry Garden Club, for doing that.
All right, and I can certainly bake a cake for auction, and I'm sure Kathy will, so we'll have a
I'm glad you
contest.
said that, and don't forget, Miss Linda, the Panther Open is coming up soon, so I'm gonna really need 2 cakes from you, just while I got you here.
And if anybody has chickens, I need more eggs. This is,
Come,
in case the
pa-
audience would.
pack it right there. Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you.
That's it, you'll be, Commissioner Hersham. We want IFAS to participate with the festival. I don't care what you do, Commissioner Hersham, how you get it done. The peanut people were supposed to come last year and I never saw them. But whoever, I'm working with the Fish and Wildlife Commission to try to get some boats up here. I don't know what we're doing, but anyway, if you could organize any of the students that want to talk about their, whatever they do, that would be wonderful, okay?
Can we bring a cow?
Thank you. Pardon?
Can we bring a cow?
I think you should. I think you should bring cows,
Do you have the cow
hogs,
with the hole in the stomach where you can reach
goats.
in? I always like that. That's fun.
That is what I do.
Yeah,
We'll see
goats.
if I can
We'll
get
do
it.
the hog calling contest if you'll bring a couple of hogs. And I saw a lamb. I'm just gotta tell y'all this. I've never in my life, all my years of animals, I've never seen a lamb. Do you know how cute those little suckers are? Oh my gosh, I want one. Not really, but bring a lamb.
When is the
Little
watermelon
lambs eat
festival?
ivy, you know?
It's May,
Watermelon
Festival.
May the,
May
it's before
19th or
Memorial
18th?
Day.
Before, it's on a Sunday?
It's the same weekend
18th.
as the Vintage Motorcycle Rally in St. Augustine, just so you know. All right, thank you.
And I just want to tell you, Miss Linda, that I now know for sure that the hog calling contest is rigged because I didn't win last year. And clearly, I gave the best call.
I've been accused of a lot of things, Mayor Marlowe, but I've never been accused of rigging a hog contest.
We know it's important in Newberry.
One other thing, and Nana, I backed out of the seed spitting contest so that the newbies could do that. But 3 years in a row I won, and so I'm getting back in. I gave Commissioner Hersham all that glory, and I'm back in
All right,
now.
that's good to know. And Commissioner Farnsworth, you're my auctioneer.
Wear a hat this year.
And I'm cutting watermelon.
Okay, all right.
There you go. You
So
got a whole
we're
bunch of
set?
volunteers. There you got the whole
Okay,
festival
good.
set.
All
One
right,
afternoon.
and I take donations for the auction too, and you know, money for cakes and,
I've got a watermelon table.
thank you.
Bring it back. Other public comment. Last call for public comment. Hearing none, we are adjourned. 9 o'clock on the dot. All right. Man, oh man.